Sometimes, the people who are supposed to protect you become the first ones to destroy your future. My name is Ethan Carter. When I was 18 years old, I lost my home. Not because of drugs, not because of crime, not because I failed. I lost it because my parents decided I was no longer worth keeping. Looking back now, standing in my own mansion 15 years later, it almost feels like someone else's life. But I remember every single detail, every word, every tear, every betrayal. It all started on a rainy Friday evening. I had just returned home after finishing my shift at a grocery store. I was exhausted. College was only 3 weeks away. For 2 years, I had worked every weekend to save money. I believed my parents were proud of me. I believed we were finally becoming a real family. I couldn't have been more wrong. The moment I opened the front door, something felt different. The house was unusually quiet. No television, no music, no laughter. My father sat in his favorite chair, his arms crossed, his expression cold. My mother stared at the floor. She wouldn't even look at me. My younger brother, Ryan, was sitting comfortably on the couch with a small smile on his face. That smile made my stomach turn. "Dad, you wanted to see me?" He slowly nodded. "Sit down." His voice sounded like a judge announcing a sentence. I sat across from him. My heart was already racing. Then he said the words that changed my life forever. "Ethan, you're 18 now." I nodded. "So?" He took a deep breath. "It's time for you to leave." For a second, I honestly thought I had misunderstood him. "Leave? What do you mean?" My mother finally spoke. "We think it's best if you move out." I laughed nervously. "Very funny." No one laughed. Dad leaned forward. "We're serious. You have until tomorrow morning." The room suddenly felt smaller. I looked from one face to another, waiting for someone to tell me this was some kind of joke. No one did. I looked at Mom. "What did I do?" She wiped away a tear, but she still couldn't meet my eyes. "You didn't do anything." "Then why?" Dad answered before she could. "Because Ryan needs this house more than you do." I frowned. "What does that even mean?" My brother finally spoke. "I'm getting married next year. We need the extra room." I stared at him in disbelief. "You want my bedroom?" He shrugged. "It's just a room." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So you're throwing me out so he can have a bigger house?" Dad stood up. "This discussion is over. You're an adult. It's time to take care of yourself." I felt my hands shaking. "I've worked every weekend. I've helped pay bills. I've done everything you've ever asked. Does none of that matter?" For the first time, Dad looked directly into my eyes. "No. Family comes first." I stood there in complete silence. Then I looked at Ryan. He looked away, unable to hide the satisfaction on his face. At that exact moment, I realized something that would stay with me forever. I had never been treated like family. I had only been useful until they no longer needed me. I couldn't move. The words echoed inside my head. "You have until tomorrow morning." Tomorrow. Less than 24 hours. That was all the time my parents thought I deserved. I looked at my mother one last time. "Mom, please, say something." She finally looked at me. Her eyes were full of tears, but instead of defending me, she quietly whispered, "I'm sorry." That hurt even more, because it meant she had already accepted my fate. I turned toward my brother. "Ryan, you really want this?" He shrugged. "It isn't personal." "I need space." I couldn't believe it. "You already have 2 bedrooms." He smiled. "I want yours." For a moment, I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask how someone could be so selfish. But then I realized this wasn't just Ryan's decision. It was my parents' choice. They had chosen him again. Dad pointed toward the stairs. "You should start packing." His voice was cold, like he was talking to a stranger. I slowly walked upstairs. Every step felt heavier than the last. When I opened my bedroom door, I just stood there. This room had been my entire world. The desk where I studied every night. The shelf filled with old books. The baseball glove Dad bought me when I was 10. The family photos hanging on the wall. For years, I believed those memories meant something. Now, they felt like decorations in someone else's house. I grabbed an old suitcase from under my bed. One by one, I packed my clothes, my laptop, a few books, my graduation certificate, and the small envelope containing every dollar I had saved from working weekends. $3,418. That was my entire future. As I zipped the suitcase, someone knocked on the door. It was my mother. She stepped inside quietly. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she handed me a small photo. It was a picture of me when I was 6 years old, sitting on my father's shoulders. All four of us were smiling. She looked at the picture, then at me. I wish things had turned out differently. I swallowed hard. They could have. You just didn't stop it. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She turned around and left without another word. That was the last real conversation we had for 15 years. The next morning, rain poured from the sky. It was barely 7 o'clock. Dad carried my suitcase to the front door. He placed it outside, then looked at me. This is what's best. I didn't argue anymore. There was nothing left to say. I picked up my suitcase, slung my backpack over my shoulder, and took one final look at the house, the place I had called home my entire life. As I stepped onto the sidewalk, the front door closed behind me. No hug, no goodbye. No one came after me. I stood there alone in the pouring rain, homeless, 18 years old, with everything I owned packed inside one suitcase. At that moment, I made myself a promise. One day, I would build a life so strong that no one would ever have the power to throw me away again. That first night, I didn't have a home. I couldn't afford a hotel, so I slept inside my old Honda Civic, parked behind the grocery store where I worked. The driver's seat barely reclined. My back hurt. The rain pounded against the windows all night, but the pain in my chest hurt far more. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's face. I heard the front door slam shut behind me. For the first time in my life, I truly understood what loneliness felt like. The next morning, I washed my face in the grocery store restroom. I changed into my work uniform. Then I smiled at customers, as if nothing had happened. No one knew that after my shift ended, I had nowhere to go. For weeks, that car became my home. I kept my clothes neatly folded in the trunk. I charged my phone inside the break room. Every dollar I earned went into a small savings account. I refused to waste a single cent. One afternoon, my manager, Mr. Thompson, called me into his office. "Ethan, you've been staying late every night. Is everything okay?" I wanted to say yes, but for some reason, I couldn't lie anymore. I told him everything, about my parents, about being kicked out, about sleeping in my car. He sat quietly, listening to every word. When I finished, he opened his desk drawer and handed me a key. I own a small apartment above my garage. It's nothing fancy, but it's empty. You can stay there until you get back on your feet. I stared at the key. I didn't know what to say. Tears filled my eyes. "Why would you help me?" He smiled. "Because someone helped me when I was your age. Now it's my turn." That tiny apartment changed my life. It wasn't luxurious. The kitchen was old. The furniture barely matched. The walls needed paint. But to me, it felt like a palace. For the first time in weeks, I slept in a real bed. The following semester, I enrolled in community college. During the day, I attended classes. At night, I worked long shifts at the grocery store. Weekends, I delivered food. Every free minute, I studied. While other students spent money on parties, I spent mine on textbooks. Life wasn't easy. Some nights, I was so exhausted, I'd fall asleep with my laptop still open. There were days I questioned whether all this hard work was worth it. Then I'd remember the day my parents chose my brother over me. That memory became my fuel. 2 years later, I graduated at the top of my class. My grades earned me a full scholarship to one of the best universities in the country. When I received the acceptance email, I sat there in silence. Then I smiled. Not because I had finally made it, but because I had done it alone. No family, no financial help, no shortcuts, just determination. The boy who had once been told, "You'll never make it without us," was finally proving them wrong. And deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. 15 years passed. Life had changed in ways I never imagined. The 18-year-old kid who had been thrown out with nothing but a suitcase no longer existed. After graduating from college, I accepted an entry-level job at a cybersecurity company in Seattle. The pay wasn't impressive, but I wasn't chasing money anymore. I was chasing opportunity. Every morning, I was the first person to arrive. Every night, I was the last one to leave. While everyone else saw a job, I saw a future. 5 years later, I took the biggest risk of my life. I quit. Everyone thought I was crazy. My coworkers warned me. My friends told me to stay where it was safe. But deep inside, I knew I wanted to build something of my own. I rented a tiny office. It had one desk, 2 old computers, and a coffee machine that barely worked. That was my entire company. For months, nothing happened. Clients rejected my proposals. Banks refused my business loans. There were nights I wondered if everyone had been right. Maybe I had made a mistake. But every time I wanted to quit, I remembered standing in the rain at 18 years old, holding one suitcase with nowhere to go. If I survived that, I could survive anything. Slowly, everything started changing. One client became 5. 5 became 20. 20 became hundreds. Within a few years, my company became one of the fastest-growing cybersecurity firms in the state. Major hospitals trusted us. Banks signed contracts with us. Government agencies hired us. For the first time in my life, success didn't feel like a dream. It felt normal. I bought a beautiful home overlooking Lake Washington, not to impress people, but to remind myself no one could ever take my home away again. One quiet Sunday morning, I was sitting on my back patio with a cup of coffee. The lake was calm. The air was peaceful. It was the kind of morning I had dreamed about for years. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I ignored unknown calls. For some reason, this time, I answered. "Hello?" There was silence. Then, a voice I hadn't heard in 15 years. "Ethan." It was my mother. She sounded older, weak, almost unrecognizable. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she whispered, "We need your help." Before I could answer, the line went silent. She hung up. I stared at my phone. 15 years, not a single birthday call, not a single Christmas message, not one apology. And now, they suddenly remembered I existed. Something didn't feel right. That evening, curiosity got the better of me. I searched my family's names online. What I found explained everything. My parents had lost their home. Ryan's construction company had gone bankrupt after years of reckless spending. He owed hundreds of thousands of dollars. Lawsuits, foreclosures, debt collectors, everything had fallen apart. The life they chose over me had completely collapsed. The next morning, at exactly 8:17, someone knocked on my front door. I opened it. Standing on my porch were my parents, older, tired, broken. My father looked like he hadn't slept in days. My mother's hands were trembling. Neither of them looked me in the eyes. Finally, my father took off his hat, lowered his head, and said words I never thought I'd hear. "Son, we have nowhere else to go." For a long moment, none of us spoke. The only sound was the wind moving through the trees outside my house. I looked at the 2 people standing in front of me. 15 years ago, they watched me leave with one suitcase without stopping me. Now, They were the ones standing at someone else's door, looking for mercy. I stepped aside. "Come in." They slowly walked into the living room. My mother looked around in silence. She noticed the family photos on the wall, photos of me with my wife, our 2 children, and the life I had built without them. She quietly wiped away a tear. Dad couldn't even sit down. He just stood there, looking at the floor. Finally, he broke the silence. "We lost everything. The house, the savings, my retirement. It's all gone." I nodded. "I know." His eyes widened. "You know? I read about Ryan's company, the lawsuits, the bankruptcy, the foreclosure." He closed his eyes. It was all true. Mom began crying. "We believed in him. We thought he would take care of all of us. But after everything collapsed, he disappeared. We haven't heard from him in almost a year." For a moment, I felt sorry for them. Not because they had lost their money, but because they had finally experienced what it feels like to be abandoned. Dad slowly reached into his coat pocket. He placed a folder on the table. Inside were unpaid medical bills, past due mortgage notices, and an eviction notice. He looked at me. "We owe almost $90,000. We don't expect you to forgive us, but please, help us survive." I leaned back in my chair. Then I asked one simple question. "When you threw me out, did either of you wonder where I slept that night?" Silence. My mother covered her face. Dad couldn't answer, so I continued. "I slept in my car for 3 weeks. I skipped meals. I worked 2 jobs. I studied until I couldn't keep my eyes open. And not once did either of you call to see if I was alive." My father's shoulders began to shake. "I'm sorry. I was wrong. I thought I was helping Ryan. I destroyed my own family instead." Those words were real. For the first time, I believed him. But forgiveness doesn't erase history. I stood up, walked to my office, and returned with a checkbook. I wrote one check, $90,000. I placed it on the table. Both of them stared at it in disbelief. Mom burst into tears. Dad looked completely speechless. Before either of them could thank me, I calmly said, "This money isn't a reward. It's a chance to start over. But things will never be the way they were. You cannot move into my home. You cannot become part of my daily life. You made your choice 15 years ago. I'm simply choosing not to repeat your mistake." Dad slowly nodded. "I understand." For the first time in my life, he accepted the consequences of his own decisions. A month later, my parents moved into a small apartment. Nothing luxurious, nothing special, just a quiet place where they could begin again. A few weeks after that, someone else knocked on my door. Ryan. He looked nothing like the confident young man who had taken my bedroom. His expensive suits were gone. His hair was messy. His eyes were filled with regret. He looked at me and quietly said, "I spent my whole life believing everything would be handed to me. I was wrong. I don't expect your forgiveness. I just wanted to tell you, I'm sorry." For a long moment, I simply looked at him. Then I offered my hand. "I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences," he nodded. "I know." As he walked away, I realized something. The greatest victory wasn't becoming richer than my family. It wasn't living in a bigger house. It wasn't proving them wrong. The greatest victory was becoming the kind of man who refused to let betrayal turn him into someone bitter. Because success isn't about making the people who hurt you suffer. It's about building a life where their choices no longer control your happiness. If you're listening to this today and someone has made you feel unwanted, remember this: your beginning does not decide your ending. Sometimes the people who leave you behind end up teaching you how strong you were always meant to become.